If we do well here, folks, it's over.
Donald Trump has gotten his rear end whipped over and over and over again for a straight 2 weeks.
And I want to have my votes. This is not fair. I thought we got out of the sandbox years ago.
Well, not so much the sandbox as it is the ballot box as we cover the Wisconsin primary. Good evening and welcome to this special edition of America Votes 2016. I'm J.D. Hayworth. It's 8 o'clock in the East, 7 o'clock in the Badger State. That means the polls in Wisconsin will close in 1 hour. Now, let's briefly review where we are in terms of this Republican race. According to the Associated Press, here is the latest delegate count. Donald Trump with 737 delegates, Senator Ted Cruz with 475, and Governor John Kasich with 143. It is worth noting, Senator Marco Rubio had 171 delegates to his name when he dropped out of the race following that poor showing in his native Florida, and Rubio, interestingly enough, has yet to release those delegates. At stake tonight in Wisconsin, 42 delegates, 24 awarded through the 8 congressional districts in the state, each district allocated in a winner-take-all format. You do the math, that's 3 delegates per congressional district. Statewide, another 18 awarded. That likewise will be in a winner-take-all format. So who has the advantage? Well, it is worth noting Donald Trump fares very well in open primaries, and both Democrats and independents can vote in today's GOP primary in Wisconsin. Meantime, Ted Cruz has picked up some key endorsements, including Governor Scott Walker and 6 big-name conservative radio hosts in the Badger State. To talk about all of this, let's bring in our first panel of the evening, and we begin from Newsmax, New York, with someone you might have just been watching. We hope you have been. It's our good friend Steve Malzberg, who you see each weeknight evening on the eponymously named Steve Malzberg show here on Newsmax TV, 7 o'clock the time on the East Coast each weeknight. Skyping in from Los Angeles, screen right, fittingly, political commentator Michael Reagan. As always, you can find and follow Michael on Twitter at Reagan World and via Skype from Northern Virginia, presidential historian Craig Shirley. Craig, also the president of Shirley and Bannister Public Affairs. Gents, we appreciate your time tonight. And at the outset, we note that Ted Cruz, in many of these polls, seemed to be leading wire to wire in Wisconsin, but a survey came out that I think caught us by surprise. We certainly caught my attention. This conducted by the American Research Group. It shows Donald Trump up by 10 points over Ted Cruz with a margin of error of 5%. The interesting part of this survey, conducted with 400 people, 240 self-reporting Republicans, 160 independents and Democrats. Of course, they can all vote in today's Republican primary in Wisconsin. So the first question is this, first to you, Craig Shirley, is this poll an outlier, or does this open primary give Trump renewed hope in the Badger State?
Well, JD, I think it is an outlier because there have been 4 or 5 polls in the last 3 or 4 days, all with Cruz with a narrow lead. Of course, now that poll, don't forget, is that it's all of Republican primary voters. It's really almost impossible to poll Democrats and independents who plan to cross over. So even though Cruz is ahead, he's only ahead in narrow single digits. So I wouldn't rest too easy on those polls tonight if I was Ted Cruz. I mean, he's certainly hoping for a win, but Trump, as you noted, has been doing well in crossover states. And as a matter of fact, as Mike knows, his father, Ronald Reagan, did very well in crossover states in 1976 and 1980, where it was open voting for Democrats and independents.
Which leads us to Michael Reagan as we take a look at the long lines of voters out in huge numbers today in Wisconsin. Mike, I'm just curious. You used to host a nationally syndicated radio program. The power of conservative talk radio in Wisconsin. An article yesterday in the New York Times mentioning 6 hosts in particular, all there for Ted Cruz. Does this really help the Texas senator?
Yeah, I think it really does help the Texas senator because all of them that they listen to, people listen to each and every day, are in the Ted Cruz camp. So I think that does help him at this point. But again, people are going to come out and vote. The polls are going to close in an hour. We're really going to find out because it is that crossover state. Remember that most of the people listening to those talk show hosts are conservatives. That's how talk radio works. They're not the independents so much. They're not the Democrats so much. So the independents and the Democrats are going to have their say, and are having their say now. And we may all be surprised by the end of the night.
And with that caveat, Michael Reagan, let's go to another talk show host at one time. It's interesting. Of us sitting here talking right now, 3 out of 4 of us have done a stint on the radio. That would be Steve Malzberg, host of the Steve Malzberg Show here on Newsmax TV. So, Steve, as we just heard both Craig and Michael discuss the open primary, is there more than just a slight ray of hope tonight for Trump? Or will the Republican hierarchy led by Governor Walker, very popular in the Badger State, be enough to keep Cruz ahead?
Well, I think in certain districts, it's going to be insurmountable for Trump. And to be honest with you, I don't think he had the organization in the ground game. And Scott Walker certainly, has that, and so does Ted Cruz. And you combine that, and that's a big advantage. As far as the influence of talk radio, I've often wondered about that, and I've got to say, if Barack Obama could be reelected last time around, and so many conservatives stayed home, notwithstanding the national talk radio shows, hammering Barack Obama every day, inside out, rightfully so, for the dreadful economy and everything else he was responsible for. I don't put too much stock as a former talk show host, as a current talk show host, but a former radio talk show host for 30 years. I don't think that talk radio hosts have all that much influence when it comes to final results at the ballot box.
Go ahead, Michael.
Talk radio was also hammering the campaign of the Republican Mitt Romney almost as much as they were hammering Barack Obama at that point. There was nobody happy with either side of the venue, if you will. And what happened? You're right. Conservatives stayed home, and Mitt Romney lost, and we got, Barack Obama for a second term. But talk radio pretty well hammers everybody if they get a chance. They very often do not really uplift people as much as they find the Achilles heel of people, and that's much how talk radio does work.
Well, it's interesting while we talk about radio, can I better intervene here, because one of the reasons Trump was getting hammered on the trail, having to do with attacks on women, specifically some things showing up in the Twitter sphere about Heidi Cruz, the wife of Senator Ted Cruz. And so Donald Trump took his wife out on the campaign trail. Let's look and listen to what Melania Trump had to say last night in Milwaukee.
He's a great leader. He's fair. As you may know by now, when you attack him, he will punch back 10 times harder.
Craig, Shirley, you hear the spousal testimony. Forgive me also, sir, I think you had a comment you wanted to make about radio and the ongoing parade of hits, if you will, during these primaries.
Yeah, sure, JD. I just want to point out that I agree with both Michael and Steve, is that talk radio is effective, but but there are limitations to it. I think the limitations are more in a general election, as Steve was describing, but are more intensely felt, as Michael was describing, in a primary. So having all those radio talk show hosts on Ted Cruz in this primary, as Michael pointed out, is that so many Republicans and conservatives listening can't help but to help Ted Cruz, but less so in a general election where there's obviously more Democratic voters.
Michael Reagan, to see Donald Trump have Melania speak to a rally last night, is that a sign of just how concerned the Donald is about his numbers falling in Wisconsin to bring out his spouse?
Yeah, when you bring out the spouse, you are in deep trouble, especially when the spouse is with you. There's a lot of spouses that are out there a lot of times in different areas than where you are. But when you bring them out like Donald Trump did last night, it shows truly desperation on that side. And when you look at the polls, 75% of women are against Donald Trump. if he wants to win a general election, if indeed he goes forward and wins the nomination, he's going to need women on his team. Why? 10 million more women voted in the last election than men. You don't have the women, you don't go anywhere.
Steve Malzberg, while we saw Melania on the trail last night, it is worth noting that for the third time, Donald Trump is a grandfather, his daughter giving birth earlier this week, probably not too far from where you are there in New York City. I wonder about the absence of Trump's daughter on the campaign trail because she has been regarded as a key advisor to her father.
Well, if she is, believe me, if she's got the Trump blood, and she does, she's got the telephone in the hospital room or wherever she is, and she's doing whatever she would do if she were in Wisconsin. And hopefully she could, hopefully she could talk to him, because I think one of the problems with Donald Trump is that, people say, why doesn't he listen to his advisors, or why doesn't somebody tell him? No, the people in the campaign work for him and take orders from him. There's really nobody giving him advice and him saying, okay. I don't know who convinced him to do the AIPAC speech off a prompter. That was the best thing ever. And I don't mean to quote Donald Trump there. He needs to do more of that. He needs to be more on target and more scripted. But having said that, in a general election, to I think Craig's or Michael's point, when it comes to women, and I'll say this till I'm blue in the face, if the nominee is Hillary, all he has to do is educate the public and bring forth people who claim to be victimized by Hillary and had their lives ruined by Hillary, who are women. And you're going to educate a whole segment of the population who are female, who have no earthly idea what I'm talking about right now.
Well, about 30 seconds left. Let me get to that with you, Michael.
Has been talking about that for, gosh, it seems like 100 years now. Hasn't gone anywhere.
But you were saying about a year ago, Michael, you were saying, please nominate Hillary because she's going to have a tough time winning. Do you stand by that? 20 seconds.
Absolutely. I'm going to vote for her when the California primary comes up because I want her to win the nomination of the party. I do not want her to be indicted. I want her to be indicted if she wins the presidency. But if she is indicted before, then you're going to get the vice president of the United States is going to step in, and that gives the Republican establishment and others a place to hide in a general election. I want Hillary to be the nominee because Hillary is so very, very beatable.
We'll have to leave it there. Steve Malzberg, stick around. Craig, Shirley, and Michael Reagan, thanks for your time tonight. And when we come back, Betsy McCoy and Richard Viguerie, a Trump supporter, a Cruz supporter, will face off when we continue our special coverage of America Votes 2016 here on Newsmax TV.